Hello again. Welcome, and lovely to see you again. This is a review now. This is session 9 of our God Story program. I am looking now at chapter 5 of the downloadable free ebook called Ambassador, which I hope you will have downloaded. Well, at least you'd have read it since the previous time we were together, session 8. So this is session 9, looking at chapter 5. I just wanted to put my own view on that. You've obviously developed your own. And to put my own view on it, which says that having prayed, it is then important that we begin to watch to see what the results are. It's very, very important. It's called persistence. What we're going to do is we're going to watch for the result, and if it happens fairly quickly, then that's absolutely super, isn't it? And God be praised. If it appears not to have any effect for some time, then there are a couple of courses of action open to us. And the first one is this idea of persistent praying. This idea got into a lot of trouble 30, 40 years ago in the modern church, as certain people began to teach that if you have to go back to God again, it's actually showing lack of faith, lack of trust, that you have to keep reminding him. And that is based on a total misunderstanding of persistence. So let me explain what persistence is. Persistence is making straight the way of the Lord. Persistence is, do you remember the story of the Battle of Jericho? Those of you who study your scriptures will know this very well, but having got across the Jordan into the Promised Land, General Joshua and his troops were faced with Jericho, which is a pretty good picture. I mean, you and I often feel that everything's going right. It's absolutely super. Everything's doing well, food on the table, bills are all paid, nice job, nice friends, everything's super. And then all of a sudden, smack, we get round the corner of life and run into a Jericho. Absolutely locked up against us, an army inside. You look around the top of the walls, you can see all the prickly spears up there. Trouble. What do you do? I always say to people, well, a lot of things Joshua could do. And be aware of this, please, when you're praying. There are a lot of things that Joshua could have done had he taken the secular approach, the human approach. He could have gone hold of other generals and said, what would you do? Because, of course, he could have undermined the walls and put explosives in. Or he could have catapulted dead donkeys into their water supply and poisoned it. Or he could have built siege forts all the way around and starved them out. You see, there are a whole range of things. He could have cut down some oak trees and run at the front doors with them and banged them in. He could have done a lot of things, which is what we tend to do with all the science and the practicalities of everything that's available to us today, which are all God's tools, sure. But which one, under these particular circumstances, was God wanting to be used? The answer is, when Joshua went and asked him, he said, no, I want you to get the living word of God, which is the ark of the Lord, in their terms, and I want you to put it up on your shoulders and march around the town, the city, the problem, if you like, and come back again, and then go back tomorrow and do it again. And the 7th time you do that, I want you to go around 7 times and then shout, hallelujah, and everyone, the walls come down. Oh, right. Then you'll be able to conquer the problem, which, of course, is what Joshua did, and the walls came a-tumbling down, as the song says. Persistence. What is the depths behind that? I don't know. Perhaps it is exercise of trust that actually makes you go on round and round and round and round. Do try that. I would not see a huge percentage of results that I do using the hope routine and praying that way waiting for God to tell me what to do. I would not see an awful lot of it, I don't think, if it wasn't for persistent praying. There are plenty of other examples in the Bible of persistence. Go on and on for a bit. Don't back up and say so. Right? Now, the second thing that you can do, if still there's no results, I mean, I do want you to keep watching all the time. I mean, if you think about it, you might have heard God wrong. And you might be praying down the wrong track altogether. He might not even want you to pray for that person or that situation that you're praying into. So it's jolly good exercise, perhaps always. I'm going to say from the beginning, but always. It's a jolly good exercise to watch for the result. Like as I often say, that if an archer shoots at a target, he follows the arrow with his eye so that he knows if he's getting good at it, or whether he's hitting the target or not, whether he's shooting straight. And I would honestly suggest to you that one really good way of being in tune with the way the Lord addresses you personally is, one, you've got to know the backstory, which is all about creation and Jesus being died for us to open heaven and so on. All that's all in the hope routine. Having done that, you need to watch out, to learn which was good, what wasn't good, because the bits that weren't good, it's very simple. You heard God wrong, or you made up your own mind. I'm not trying to be condemning. I'm trying to help you to learn and to advance. And the second thing, even if all that fails you and you still don't get anywhere, don't forget what's happening here. Grace is descending all the time. We're praying on behalf of somebody somewhere to try and get some doors open so that that grace can flow into that situation. It is worth going back through the hope routine and sitting again with the Lord and waiting and saying, please, will you tell me what in this situation, who should I pray for? Obviously, that can often be multi-problem. Who should I pray for and what should I pray about? Please point me directly at it. If you get total silence, the answer is you're probably choosing to pray for something and God never wanted you to. He's using somebody else. Yeah, sure. I think as a learner in all these things, we all have the humility to accept that as part of training. You can't score a goal every time anybody puts a ball near you. But I want to tell you a story. I know a lady who was faced with a problem in buying a new house. Was that for some reason which she didn't understand, the whole legal shenanigans that go on was slowed down to stop and just wasn't happening at all. And the buyer of her old house was getting very uppity and threatening to pull out if nothing happened fairly soon. And that was a huge cause of unrest and unpeace in her life, because it could have been a huge worry. If that person had backed out, she wouldn't have had the funds, she wouldn't have been able to buy the new house she'd set her heart on and so on. So she, having prayed and still nothing moved, and so she took my second option, which is to go back through the Hope program again and sat with the Lord and said, please, could you be more specific with me about what I should pray with? Now, something is blocking God's grace from flowing through that situation. It is wrong to think that everything that blocks God is demonic and therefore you have to get into deliverance ministry and all that. That's a really over-egged issue, that is, entirely. The chances are it's usually an attitude problem. In my experience, it's usually somebody has got a wrong attitude somewhere and it needs to change. And this particular lady, after a while sitting with the Lord, had a very strange word, and the word was alcoholism. Now, she then, in turn, held up all the agencies involved. I mean, there are the legal beagles, aren't there? There are the agents, and so on, lots of people involved. Because she had lawyers and they had lawyers, and she's got agents and they had agents, and I don't know. So eventually she went through the lot, I think, just calling for God's victory over alcoholism, sure in her own mind that the problem was that in the string of events that has to go through to buy and sell a house, there was somebody obviously whose mind was focused on alcohol, or they were too fuddled with alcohol to work properly, or they were at home and couldn't get into work because of being oversaturated with booze, or whatever it was. But she prayed through alcoholism, and 2 days later, all the paperwork arrived. Now, I can't prove to you that was the problem. I can't go through and backtrack it all. The point is, she operated in trust that she had heard, right, that God was on her side because she was in a prayer partnership with Jesus Christ, and that therefore it would happen, and it did. That's all I can tell you. It's terrific, isn't it? So out of that 2 steps of persistence, what I must say to you is that what you're doing is you are making straight the way of the Lord. That's the call of the prophets on all of us. I thought originally that meant I would have to become sin-focused and look at myself and try and clean myself out as a channel of God's peace and so on. But I don't believe that anymore, to be honest. I think much more likely is that if we think persistence is beating a path to heaven over and over again and beating on the door of heaven to try and get God to perform, our theology is way off beam. That's not our God at all. Our God is a God of love and compassion and sacrifice. The cross has happened. Grace is pouring out of the world all the time. Our job as ambassadors of Christ is actually to beat a path for God to get to the problem. Like, for example, to alcoholism. Was the example that we picked, but it's always a completely different answer for every single problem. So you've got to wait for the Lord to tell you what it is, as He knows everything. So that's the way through. That's making straight the way of the Lord, is beating a path for Him to the door of the problem. It isn't the other way around. It's not beating on His head to try and get Him to turn around and perform. Where do you do this? The other thing was the place. I mean, where, people say to me, I'd love to sit on the side of the lake because I really appreciate, God's presence in creation. So, yep, pray there. Fine. You can pray in the kitchen making dinner, can't you? You can pray on the way to work. You can pray stuck on a traffic jam on the way home from work. You can pray at your desk at work lunchtimes if you so wish. It's right, isn't it, to pepper our days with prayer like that? Absolutely fine. What interests me, though, is that an awful lot of people who tell me or indicate to me that they believe that God doesn't actually talk as much as I think He does. I want to encourage you. He does. He's actually talking all the time. Our difficulty is in listening. It's in hearing Him, because we live in such noisy worlds. There's so much interference going on. There's so many things, interfering with our hearing. So many things. And frankly, to sit on the side of a lake and watch the lovely swans and think, oh, God is real, is just something that's, the beauty of that scene is interfering with our concentration. Be careful too to think, well, I go there. The people use the expression a thin place, as it's a place that's easy to listen to God. That's normally because the disturbances are not there. It's as simple as that. It's not because God is blessing one place more than another. God, in fact, exists everywhere. So it's our shortfall, not God's, if we can't hear Him in church. No, you don't have to be in a church to pray. No, you don't have to be on a hillside. You can be anywhere you like, but it's somewhere where you get rid of and don't have the disturbances, the interference, if you like, on the line. It's God is always talking to you. It's finding and locating. But the other thing, of course, is if you do it in the car coming home from work, you're not likely to be regular with that. And regularity being over and over again, getting into the Hope program regularly is part of building your basic Christian maturity, and is very important from that point of view, because the more mature you get, the more you will develop a relationship with God in prayer and be able to move like this, okay, over and over again. So I bless you to all those thoughts. I'm sorry if that's an awful lot, but I bless you to those sorts of ways of thinking about this. Mini study for the next time we come back for session 10. Won't it be? Gosh. What I'd like you to do, if you would please, is to go through again. Two things really. I'd like you to go through again, if you would, the film on the Prayer Project website. That's www.theinternationalprayerproject.co.uk. Go through on that website, you'll see a link on the homepage to films, and the first one of those is called Forging a Prayer Partnership with God. That one, I'd like you to go through that again, and please pay specific attention to the whole picture of the horse in the paddock with the jumps, and just see how that speaks to you in your own mind. The other thing that I'd like you to do, please, from the free ebook you can download if you haven't, I hope you have already, called Ambassador, again from the same website, resources, yes. In there's a free ebook called Ambassador. I would like you to read, if you would, chapter 6. Chapter 6 is the one that we need to get to next. See you next time.